What's going on, boys? No guys here. Today's video we're going to go over the customized controller settings for next generation and old generation. This will be post patch, of course. Since the beginning of the game I made an old one. These are my updated controller settings. I'll walk you through each thing. What's the best that you could do for your reactions? I suppose you can say statistical chance like player switching. I'll get onto in a second, and I'll explain that all in detail. So the first thing is FIFA trainer. Typically speaking, this will be on hidden. You can leave this on show if you're playing rivals and you want to see where you're aiming. You can leave that on show if you want to, but of course most time it's just hidden unless you're new to the game. Time finishing, well, I have it on. If you don't use time finishing, just leave it off. You can still time free kicks and penalties, so don't worry too much about that. You can still don't forget all penalties. I think all free kicks can still be timed, so don't worry too much about time finishing being on off. So you can still do it, of course. I've got square to shoot, so if you've got circle to shoot, it will be circle by default. You just press the button again. Next, switch defend icon. This is important. Now, normally above the player's head, when you're defending, you'll have a red icon, and then you kind of have like a yellowy red icon as well. This second defender icon, I agree, it's irritating first to the human eye, but after that, it's important because if you press the L1 button, you switch to the player with this icon above the head, guaranteed every single time. Now, this is the best advice I give for player switching. Inside the box, you use player switching. Just use the L1 button inside the box. Outside the box, use right stick switching. That's what I use. Also, the next player switch indicator is good for when you use teammate contain. You can see which second player is pressing as well. Pass blocks, leaving this on. Obviously, there's a benefit of having this on. There's actually no reason or no benefit to leaving this on off. So definitely leave this on. It'll help you more times than not, especially inside the box. Now, auto switching, I veer between manual and air balls. I'll be honest, every single person should have it on air balls and loose balls. You don't want to leave it on, because if you leave it on automatic, sometimes, let's say for example, your midfield falls over here. If the ball is over here, and let's say for example, your opponent runs down the wing, the game will switch to your right back automatically. You don't want that. You want to have control of your own players. You might want to switch to your CM and bring him there just in case. So leave this on air balls, and that way, only when the ball, I think is 6 feet or higher in the air, then a game will switch for you, or if it's a loose ball. So I'd say definitely leave auto switching on air balls. There's no point leaving this on manual. It's not going to make you switch better as people think, because obviously it's automatic switching anyway. So you'd best just leaving this on air balls and loose balls. Now, move assistance. Now I have this on none. I would recommend none or low. For 95% of the players watching this video, you're better off leaving this on low. High, realize, first of all, this is only if the game switches you. This is auto switching move assistance. I think for through balls down the wing or through balls inside, like let's say your opponent has like a deadly through ball down the middle, it's worth putting this on low or none because you're able to react to a through. So let's say for example, like your opponent has the ball over here, your back four, he does some madness through ball in the middle. If you have this on low, at least you can then, switch or maybe just try to run in front of the attacker with the defender a bit more. So I leave this personally on none because I like to have full control. But if you're watching this and you're below Elite 2, I would say just leave this on low, but do not put this on high as well. I'd recommend. It's better to get used to using this on low, and it's kind of a balance between a bit of assistance but not too much where the game just screws you over completely. This is important. Do not put this on manual. I'm not joking. Unless you're maybe like a top 100 player or pro player, there's no reason to have this on manual. People think it gives you more control, but if you're using the running jockey, you want this to be on assisted every single time. Now I used to use manual, but now because I don't compete, or I'm just playing very casually now, weekend league, I don't need to use manual anymore. But if you're struggling with delay, bad gameplay, and you can't keep up with your opponent, assisted is game. This is kind of like an aim lock. Think of like, when you're playing CSGO, for example, or whatever COD, whatever you do play, imagine like a headshot. This basically assists you. So if your opponent, for example, runs down the way and using the run and jockey, he'll track him. If your opponent decides to maybe just walk a little bit downwards, the game will stay with them. So this kind of keeps you to mirror your opponent. So it's very important you leave this on assisted, so that way you're mirroring your opponent the entire time when he's moving. It's very, very good for defending. Auto flare pass, I leave this on off. If you want to do a flare pass, use the L2 button. Clearances, I would say leave it on actually. I leave it on off personally because I like to control. Like when I get the ball inside the box, I don't panic. I can weasel my way out of a situation. If you panic inside your own box, very rarely it happens anyway, but you can leave this on if you do panic, I would say inside the box. So you can of course change that. I leave it on off. Auto shots. In terms of shooting, I leave this on off. I would say leave this on all the time. Sometimes the game will shoot for you when it's a guaranteed goal, so that's why we want to leave this one on. Now the reason why I leave it on off, in case you're wondering, sometimes I like to do fake straight around the goalkeeper. Sometimes I like to just kind of, well, I'm not going to say show off, but you guys, if you watch my streams, by the way, I stream on twitch.tv/NeilGuides. I like to walk past my opponent's team. Sometimes I don't want the game to shoot me automatically, I leave this one off. Player lock, leave this one on. You're not going to mistakenly use the player lock feature unless you don't use it at all and you have a habit of pressing the left of these buttons in. But if you haven't got the habit, just leave this one off, in my opinion. So if you have the habit, should I say, leave this one off, or leave it on. Now, contextual agile dribbling is one that I get loads of people asking questions on. You want to leave this one off. Train yourself to use the RB button, or was it R2, whichever button it is. I think it's RB by default. Yes, RB. Train your, or R1. Train your yourself to use the R1 button. Don't rely on this, because sometimes there's situations where, like, let's say for example your opponent's like over here and over here, and you want to take a touch into this direction. Sometimes with let's say contextual agile dribbling, sometimes you'll take too many minute touches and you might go like this. Sometimes you want to take like a kind of a left stick touch into that direction, not kind of do like these small minute touches like that. So it's worth controlling it manually, and that way you have complete control. And if you want, you can always leave this and put this on using the R1 button. Just hold the R1 button, R button in game, you turn it on. It's better to leave it that way. That way you're always in control. Sometimes check, because this setting does change automatically. Assist headers, you need to leave it off anyway, because on Foot Champions, it's on, off, or on. You can't choose it because most Foot Champs games is normally it's off by default. It's only for just kickoff game mode. Right stick. This is one question. I use ball relative. Statistically speaking, ball relative is better to switch to a player, and it's safer than right stick switching. I know 99% of community users. If you've been playing this game for 10 years, I've been playing for 20 years. If you play for 10 years, don't switch. But I switched FIFA 19 when it did come out, whenever it was FIFA 20, I think it was 19. It made a big difference. Now, why? Well, the logic is, let's say the ball is over here. Let's just say in theory the ball is over here. Or let's say that the ball is over here, should I say. Let's say this is your back line, okay? Now, if you have your two CDMs over here, if you have right stick switching on, the player is the reference point. So that means if you want to switch to, for example, this player, you have to flick your right analog stick to the top right to go from that player to that player. Sometimes the game might choose your left back. Now I know it's so stupid. You could aim perfectly like this and the game would choose your right back. If you have ball relative on, it always chooses it in reference to the ball. So if you right stick switch to the top, it will always choose the first line of CDMs first. So that's why, statistically speaking, if you hold the right analog stick like this, it will always switch to your CDM 99.99% of the time. Unless there's extreme delay, the game can never screw you over. And if you want to switch to your right back, then you hit it back twice. Do you see? If you, for example, switch, for example, like from your, let's say, for example, to this guy, let's say you're on player relative. Let's say you switch, for example, to this guy by mistake second, and then you want to go back to this guy. You have to flick your right analog stick first to the top right to go to the left back. Number two, then you have to flick it back down again. So you kind of got to go right stick like that, and then you got to go back down again. But with ball relative, even if the game screwed you over, you'll select your CDM first, and then you select the second guy after it. So you just flick it the same way every single time. So therefore, it's more consistent. And yes, in the beginning, it's going to be hard for you to learn. There's only one downside, and this is only if you're like, again, a top 100, a pro player. When you're manually pressing with teammate contain, trying to trap your opponent, trying to use pressure, it might be a bit better to use player relative. But I've trained myself to use ball relative. I can still press at a very, very high caliber now. So I would say I'd recommend it. In my opinion, this is the biggest difference for player switching. It's not going to make it exponentially better, but it'll make it more consistent. That I can very much guarantee you. It will take you some time. You're going to try, you're going to be like, this is bad. Just trust me, give it like, you know, I would say maybe a month. You have to honestly just believe in yourself and give it a month. But if you've been playing for 10 years, then just don't even bother switching. But that's a very good explanation, because no one really explains this properly. It does sound confusing. None of the pros do use it because they're used to using player relative. But statistically speaking, it's more safer. And mathematically speaking, you can argue you got the highest percentage chance of choosing the right player, because it always goes to the closest player towards ball, and then you can redefine it after, therefore reduce the chances of errors. Ground pass and leave us on manual assisted. Don't leave it on manual. People are saying, oh yeah, passing is screwed up. I think Stallion made a video on this perfectly. Go watch Stallion Stallion's video. He's a guy who knows the game very, very well. And he explains, for example, how bad this game is. I think he visually depicts what I always talk about in his video. But change to semi and manual is not going to help you. Just leave on. It says the game will still screw you over with passes, but just leave on. It says don't ever get frustrated that, you know what, let me use semi, because semi will cost you more times than not than the game screwing you over. Same with through ball and same with shot. Leave them all. Back in the day, I used to do this, like old school FIFA 11. But no one played this way. Like, it was honestly nonsense. Like, everyone online had assisted, so I changed, like in FIFA, was it FIFA? Maybe FIFA 13, I changed all assisted. Cross assistance, you can leave this on semi, because this way you can control the power. I would say leave this on semi actually, because this way you can control the power. So if you do a cross from, for example, like here, if you're on assisted, it just locks onto anyone random. But if it's on semi, depending on how much power you use, you can define where the ball goes. Not in terms of the trajectory, but more in terms of, does it go near post, far post, or in the middle? Does that make sense? Oh, near post, far post, in the middle. Well, near post, middle, far post, should I say. So the more power you do, it'll go far post. Less power you do, it'll go near post. Lob, this might be the only one you can use on manual. I used to use manual, but because of delay nowadays and how screwed the game is, I don't even use manual anymore. I'd recommend assisted, save assisted. Analog sprint, the best thing I experience is, imagine this R2 button. Think of the R2 button. Oh my god, that's not one to do. Think of the R2 button like a gas pedal in your car. So if you press your R2 button all the way in, you're going to be going at 100% speed. If you press in just that much, you're going to be going at 40%. So basically what this means basically is, like, think of it like an acceleration pedal or gas pedal in your car. In theory, you want to be running always at full speed. So leaving this off means you'll be running at 100% speed the entire time. Why would you want this on? If you're running jockey, you may want to control the running jockey speed with the R2 button, but you can control it with your left analog stick with assisted jockeying, so that defeats that purpose anyway. There's no reason to have this on unless you're using left stick dribbling, but left stick dribbling has been nerfed. I know maybe 2 of my friends that are top players that I know that use it. I would recommend leaving this on off. Especially with through balls, if you don't switch to your centre back in time, and if you, for example, hold the right analog stick just a little bit, you'll be running at full speed and you could get done. So leave this on off, that way as soon as you press it, just a tiny bit, you'll be running at 100% full speed all the time. Tactical defending, you need it unless you're playing kickoff. You can use the old school legacy style, that's where you hold the X button, but of course tactical defending is what I use, and that's what you're going to use for online. Pass assistance, it's important. I leave this on late. Early, there's no point. Game screws you over anyway. Just leave it on late. That way, if for example you want to pass the ball to player B, and let's say for example someone here marks the passing lane, if you have it on late, you can quickly pass the ball to player C. But if you have on early, if you pass to player B, the game is already locked in, and the pass locked in, so you can't change direction. So the benefit of leaving this on late is, if for example you realize someone's coming to swiftly mark that passing lane, you can pass the ball and change direction midway through the animation, just before the ball is kicked. So it's very, very important. Leave this on off. This is so annoying. It's honestly a joke. This honestly reduces the chance, because you know it's hard to press these triggers if you have this on enhanced. Have this on off, and if you're on, for example, PlayStation, what you can do is you go over to, I think it's settings. I don't even know how you even do it. I think it's let me double check. I think it's accessories, something like that. Basically, the way you want to also do is you want to go, I think it's go over to settings, something like this. I'm not too sure. I can't really see the edge of the screen because unfortunately my webcam is in the way. But if you go over to settings, hang on 1 second. I can't really see it because I can't see half the screen because my thing's in the way. Basically, just go to settings, go to control settings, turn your vibration settings off. Because even if you have this on off, sometimes the game overrides it and it still leaves it on. I can't show you this, but just go over to your settings and just go to accessory controller settings, because half my screen is covered with the analysis thing and I've got my webcam there, I can't really see it. And in terms of normal controls, now I use old school PES controls. You're wondering like, what the hell is this? This is like old school ISS Pro Evolution 2 controls, ISS Pro controls. Don't use these controls for obvious reasons. I use them because I've been playing the same way 20 years. There is one benefit though of having, one thing is if you have the sprint button on the R1 button, you can't use analog sprint on, because obviously it's a button. It's like, you know, it's either 0 or 1, whereas you can argue it's from like 0 to 100, like 99%. It's only 0 or 1. It's kind of like off on with a, it's kind of like an on button on, for example, like turning on your PlayStation, whereas for example this is more like a volume knob. You can actually fine tune it. So if your run button is on R1, you cannot use analog sprint. The second thing I would say is a little quick tip if the pass button is on X, you can sometimes kick the ball or pass the ball, do a short pass instead of tackling the ball. That's the benefit of leaving the tackle button on X. I wouldn't change it now, but if you want to get better at FIFA, I'd recommend changing this because you don't need to tackle that much. You need to run and jockey. The second thing is the reason why my shoot button is on square as opposed to X is because your thumb is naturally placed there. When you're doing a fake shot, it's easier to do this with the fake shot than do this. This makes no sense. I mean, I don't know people do it like that. Your thumb naturally is like this. It's so much easier to do a fake shot just like this. So if you're struggling with fake shots, you can start using square and X. And plus also, the shoot button is closer to the right analog stick. It's quicker for you to take a shot, and also tackle the ball is quicker for you to press X as opposed to pressing circle. So you also reduce the reaction time in pressing the tackle button as well. But that's kind of my 2 cents. I mean, this is like going next level now, but obviously, you know, I like going into that much kind of detail. But that's kind of the controller settings. Feel free to copy the controller settings. As I said, it's important you understand why I do each controller settings. If you're on my Patreon, I have an in-depth video explaining all of these in complete detail with some visual examples. Don't forget patreon.com/NeilGuys, my FIFA School Series. Link is down below in the description, so you can of course check that FIFA School Series out. Of course, money back guarantee if you don't get better after 1 month. And that's pretty much it. Well, boys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you tomorrow. And don't forget, I do have twitch.tv/NeilGuys where I stream as well. But 60 minutes in, unfortunate peril of making in-depth videos. They always take a long time. But thanks for watching, boys. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.